its victims.
We're one of only a couple that are doing it as a nasal vaccine. The reason that I think that it is important to consider a nasal vaccine is because you develop immunity at the site where you're going to get infected.
And in poorer countries, a nasal spray that can be easily administered and stored at room temperature would be a godsend.
This is a virus that is going to infect eventually everybody in the world because nobody has any immunity to it. And so you have to think about how you're going to deliver, billions of doses of vaccines in a way that is simple and doesn't require refrigeration and is something that can be administered in places where maybe they don't have really robust health systems.
But we're talking about 100 medical scientific teams around the world. I mean, you're suggesting they're wasting their time.
Well, I don't think the hunt for a vaccine is a waste of time, but I think it's a waste of time to act as if we're going to get something in 6 months or 12 months or 18 months for everyone in the world. And we will need billions of doses of whatever they find if we're going to knock the plague out. Just in the US, you'd need 300 million or more doses.
But this company in Canada may have found a way of producing vaccine doses in the tens of millions, quickly and cheaply. Here at Medicago, they use the plants as the culture in which they grow the vaccine's genetic code, which is then extracted to be made into the vaccine itself.
So we use the plants as our bioreactors, and it's a rapid process. So once we get the genetic information into the plants, 7 days after that, we can harvest the leaves and we can extract the vaccine.
Natalie Landry is Medicago's Vice President of Biotechnology. So let's say you find this holy grail. Practically, how long would it take you to immunize the rest of the planet?
So currently we have 2 manufacturing facilities. So the one we have in Quebec can produce 1 million doses per month. And the one we have in the US, in North Carolina, can produce around 10 million doses a month. So in the very short term, we have a capacity of around 11 million doses a month.
The vaccine being developed by Medicago's research team is truly ingenious. They're creating microscopic copies of the coronavirus. These virus-like particles are non-infectious and cannot replicate. But in a vaccine, they fool the body's immune system into responding and thus create an immunity to the real virus. If your company does crack the code, it'd just go straight into the medical history books, wouldn't you?
If everybody's doing his job, we can make it happen, and we can make it happen fast, because we're trying to do in 18 months what would require normally 3 to 5 years.
It's fair to say, isn't it, that if we are to have any hope, the hope is that we will find a vaccine.
Oh, we will. We will find a vaccine. It's not the first time we're producing a vaccine or developing a vaccine, so there's gonna be a vaccine. It's a matter of doing the things right, proving that the vaccine is safe and effective.
Finding a vaccine, as impossible as that may seem right now, is only the first step. Remember, this is something that's going to have to be injected or somehow delivered to most of the world's population. If we get it wrong, we could turn a catastrophe into a medical apocalypse.
You get one shot and one shot only. You get one opportunity here. If you create something that isn't safe and it sickens people, getting people to go for the next vaccine will be next to impossible.
To achieve the impossible, both in the time frame the politicians are promising and to ensure the safety of the vaccine, some, like Professor Kaplan, are advocating a radical and highly risky strategy, deliberately infecting healthy volunteers to determine if the vaccine works. It's called a challenge study, and it's rarely been done in medical history.
If you immunize people and then deliberately give them the virus, deliberately, you infect them, pick people who are young and very unlikely to die, then you know, and you get an answer. We have, if you will, a setup to speed up by months, if not years, the ability to find that vaccine.
If you deliberately infect people, though, without having a rescue clause, that does raise huge ethical questions, doesn't it?
It does. Now, you have to do what you can to minimize the risk, and they'd also have to know that if they got sick, there is a chance, it's a small one, but a chance they could die.
That's a very big if. Do you know many of these people?
Right now, there's a website that started to ask for volunteers for challenge studies. I do think the problem is not going to be getting the volunteers, it's going to be making the decision that it's ethical to do this.
There is one famous Australian scientist who did deliberately infect a healthy human to test a cure. The lab in Wuhan, for example, what category?
Well, it'd be at least PC3.
Professor Barry Marshall gave himself the stomach bacteria that causes fatal ulcers. Not only did he survive, but he won the Nobel Prize for Medicine in 2005.
I said to my wife, we were right. And she said, what? I said, I took the bacteria, I've got the illness. And she said, you did what?
So I did do it myself in a time when there wasn't so much technology and so much thought about it.
But when you did it, when you infected yourself, did you have a rescue strategy?
A little bit. It wasn't, my rescue strategy was not perfect. I know that with hindsight.
And you're obviously in a high-risk class for COVID-19. But if we could wind back the clock and you could take part in such a study, would you put your hand up?
Immediately.
If we did have such a study and deliberately infect those people, how much more would that help?
I think you could speed the process by anywhere from 6 months to a couple of years, because remember, you're talking about tens and tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people dying over that period of time. That's again why I think it might be a trade-off if people were willing to volunteer to be subjects. I think it's time, given this enormous plague and the damage it's causing and the deaths it's causing, to look for that kind of heroism again.
In a sense, the world doesn't have a choice. The question can't be if we find a vaccine, but when, no matter how many billions of dollars and man-hours it takes. If we don't, we face a future of lockdowns, social distancing, and recurring COVID pandemics for years, if not decades to come. And if it's not your company that comes up with this, but another company, but there is a vaccine, will you still be happy?
Yes, because it won't be the fact of one single company. We need many solutions as we can get, because nobody can produce enough to supply the world. Nobody. So I wish that there's a vaccine that gets to the market as quickly as possible, even if it's not ours.
Professor Kaplan, you're not painting a very rosy picture, not sounding terribly optimistic about a vaccine.
Well, politicians, whether it's in the USA, the UK, Australia, other countries, they want to be optimistic. Telling people to lock themselves up for a year and a half while we try to wait this thing out is probably impossible, and they know that. So they quickly turn to talk of vaccines and magic bullets as a way to give us hope. I'm not against hope, but when you talk about vaccinating the world in 12 months, I think you're fantasizing.
Hello, I'm Sarah Arbo. Thanks for watching. To keep up with the latest from 60 Minutes Australia, make sure you subscribe to our channel. You can also download the 9Now app for full episodes and other exclusive 60 Minutes content.